It is now time for one of the many prestigious awards that we present as part of the Australian Songwriters Awards each year. It is time to write a new chapter, so to speak, in terms of putting another name into the ASA Hall of Fame. Would you please now welcome to the stage a man who, I say each year, needs very little introduction. You've read his work, you've heard his words, and you welcome him back tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Glenn A. Baker.
Now this, as you know, is the moment where you give me your absolute undivided attention, where you cease your chatter, your extraneous white noise, and you listen very carefully, because this is an induction, as they all are, but particularly of some importance. Now, I once described Cold Chisel as a band that had fused so many of the positive qualities of traditional Australian gut-level hard rock that they effectively delivered the perfect Antipodean brew, a potion that knocked you off your feet but left you wondering why it happened. What I think I was getting at was the power and importance of songs in what may well be Australia's greatest song band. Songs that came from all 5 members, but particularly, overwhelmingly, from a man who ranks as one of the finest songsmiths this country has ever known. Over the years I've been standing on this stage, I've had the distinct privilege of inducting into the Australian Songwriters Hall of Fame such luminous and legendary craftsmen as Easy Beats' Wright Vander Young, Angels, Brewster Neeson Brewster, LRB's Goebel Shorrock Birtles, Brian Cadd, Richard Clapton, Ross Wilson and the Church's Steve Kilbey. But there has been one that has been frustratingly beyond my reach until tonight. A writer whose songs have been intertwined in our lives since the end of the 70s. Timeless songs that have fulfilled all the essential criteria of greatness. They tell us who we are, where we are, perhaps even why we felt the way we did. Now, all the cliches apply. They are soundtracks of our lives, part of our collective memory mass. That became inescapable when Cold Chisel took to the road in reformation mode in stadiums over the past couple of years. As one masterpiece after another came rolling off those stages, so very many of them from the creative consciousness of the man we honour tonight, we knew with a certainty that there was nowhere else that we wanted to be. Our lives flashed in front of our eyes and our ears. Donald Hugh Walker, as the biographies tell us, came along in Ayr, northern Queensland, late in 1951. His father was a farmer and his mother a school teacher. She would become a novelist, as would his sister Brenda. He grew up among cane stands on the Burdekin River and flowering jacarandas, or flame trees, in Grafton. Somewhere along the way, picking up some piano chops from kindly mentors. Influences ranging from Chopin to Fats Waller, Oscar Peterson and Jolly Winifred Atwell, to Steve Winwood and the Doors' Ray Manzarek. If Don was destined for a career in rock, he had a funny way of showing it. He worked hard on a physics degree and was gainfully employed at the Weapons Research Establishment in Elizabeth, modelling airflow for the F-111s. It was in Adelaide with a hard rock and covers band, originally called Orange, that he put together with an Alice Springs guitarist by the name of Ian Moss and English drummer Steve Presswich, that the saga really began. He had to go to Armidale for a year to finish his studies, but the core held together, and with the inclusion of a raw singer called Jimmy Barnes, who'd also gone off for a bit to replace Bon Scott in Fraternity, Cold Chisel gained the wherewithal to head to the eastern states, land a record deal with Warner's, and do nothing less than completely reorientate Australian music. When I was asked to write the liner notes for the Cold Chisel tribute album, Standing on the Inside, I penned these words. Standing on the outside. Did I say standing on the inside? Standing on the outside. Standing on the outside looking in, there was a lot of that for Cold Chisel. In the second half of the 70s, with Australian chart music in a glam and glitter vice, festooned with satin tour jackets, stack heels and flash bombs, nobody in any pivotal position was hailing an edgy, unpredictable, uncompromising and often intimidating outfit from Adelaide as the future of anything much at all. These were boom times, excessively visual and television driven, with no time at all for barbarians at the gates. Put simply, nobody saw them coming. Well, nobody except the howling hordes in a network of rock pubs who formed an instant addiction to the industrial strength urban blues rock bluster that reduced them to a sort of amorphous blob beneath the stage. And while it would be romantic to say that for Cold Chisel to find a place in mainstream Oz rock at that time, it would eventually become necessary for them to batter down the walls, the truth is that they just walked around them. Though famed for their attitude of defiance, it was more accurately one of disinterest that they brought to bear upon the industry as it existed. When you saw those 5 disparate players, awesomely tight, fueled by anger, alcohol and near demonic determination, dispensing molten waves of rock, unashamedly anchored to a brace of adolescent heroes, Free, Cream, Deep Purple, The Doors, Hendrix, Zeppelin and Bad Company among them, the words innate and instinctive came to mind. In 1981, I thought them our most mature, intelligent and fully realised rock band. For Chisel did not sell 5 million albums and close to 1 million videos and DVDs in this country, and did not leave an indelible imprint of influence because of their unrivalled power on a stage. Their legacy, for those who were never down in the trenches, were the songs, the diverse, often magnificently crafted pieces that seemed to give so much more than we might have expected from a band of their leaning. Each member would come to write songs, seed into our collective consciousness, but the creative core was the deft outpouring of a quiet maths and physics scholar who was, in the words of another besotted rock scribe, Ed St. John, a gifted lyricist with a keen observational eye and a wonderful affection for life's misfits, rebels and outlaws. With Jimmy Barnes effectively living out the life that he wrote about, Don Walker turned out a body of work that articulated a Cold Chisel ethos, one that seems to have never lost its potency. It's worth contemplating for a moment just how affronting or even confusing a singer like Kay San would have been when it arrived on programmers' desks amidst the spangles and teen trivialities in the middle of 1978. An undeniable adult song dealing with a frustrated and disillusioned Vietnam vet trying to claw out a place for himself. It was without a convenient slot. It took radio a long time to catch up. Kay San may now be seen as a quasi-national anthem, but it did not enter the national top 40. The second album, Breakfast at Sweethearts, was in the top 5 as Live Devotion grew, but the best that the title track single could achieve was number 63. In fact, it wasn't until their 5th single, Choir Girl, almost 2 years after they'd first appeared on record, that they were in the top 20. The mountain had come to them. Over the decade run of Cold Chisel, Don Walker gave us such masterpieces as Cheap Wine, Saturday Night, Standing on the Outside, Shipping Steel, The Last Wave of Summer, Star Hotel, Four Walls, 20th Century, Hold Me Tight, Astrid Goodbye with Jimmy Barnes, and with Steve Presswich, Flame Trees, to name but some, with the powerful No Plans album this year comprised almost entirely of quality Don Walker songs, such as Everybody. The rich vein has continued to flow. After the Last Stand concerts drew the first phase of Chisel to an end, Don Walker moved into his own second era of songwriting, one just as prolific and productive as that which earned him his massive acclaim and recognition. But then he'd always been keen to move beyond a single outlet. For the 1981 Scott Hicks film Freedom, he wrote and produced a soundtrack album that included vocals by the young Michael Hutchence. Over the years to come, he would craft mature and always engaging songs for his band Catfish, for Tex, Don and Charlie, for his own solo albums, for his old comrades Barnsey and Mossy, and for an array of admirers who covered him, collaborated with him, or were fortunate to have him write for them. These included Jeff Lang, Mick Harvey, Adam Brand, Jimmy Little, Wendy Matthews, Katie Noonan, Kate Sobrano, and Anne Kirkpatrick. It was the attention paid to Don Walker's song by Anne's dad, Slim Dusty, that underlines just how representative an Australian tunesmith he had become. Slim's treatment of Charleville, like Anne's rendition of Silos, took the Walker legacy way beyond rock and its restrictions. When it came time for the country music icon to cut his 100th album, it was to Don Walker that he turned, with a looking forward, looking back, proving a quite magical nexus of writer and performer. In 2008, the APRA Award for Country Work of the Year went to Don and Troy Cassadaly for their co-write Everything's Going to Be All Right. Now, I'm indebted to Richard Clapton, a previous inductee, for this succinct observation. He has described Don Walker as, and I quote, the most Australian writer there has ever been. Don just digs being a sort of beat poet who goes around observing, especially around the streets of King's Cross. He soaks it up like a sponge and articulates it so well. Quite frankly, I think he's better than the rest of us. I had a conversation a few days ago with the teacher and writer Bernie Howard, who earlier tonight interviewed the Atlantics on this stage. He said to me something like, I don't think you can understand the post-war cultural landscape of Australia without understanding and appreciating the songs of Don Walker, Greg McCain and Paul Kelly. Well, it makes sense to me. In his book Shots, Don Walker laid further claim to his position as a consummate observer of life, his and ours. It's a broad canvas Don's brushstrokes have been laid upon. Rock, blues, country, jazz, all shades of earth music. His body of work is rich, large and impressively consistent. He writes songs like the rest of us draw breath. May it always be so. And I would call your attention to the screens.
Like, let's take a lot of your songs. I mean, there's so much jail reference. You've never been in jail, have you?
Only visiting.
Yeah? So where do you get those ideas from?
Well, we've played a couple of times in jails, and I've gone out to a jail in Sydney a couple of times, and because there's some guys producing some music out there, and just have a look at what they're doing.
Right, well, let's take Kaysana as far as Vietnam is concerned. You were never in Vietnam, are you?
No, but I knew some guys who were over there.
Right.
You know, Don's songs, you know, they weren't particularly political, but they were really strong observations about, you know, people's feelings, and whether it was, you know, Khe-Sanh or, you know, Misfits or whatever, you know.
I mean, for most of the 70s, no, we had a long way to go, you know. We spent years going around to places and not really making much impression at all. We were slow to learn as far as evolving what we were doing, and but even if we'd been quick to learn and evolve what we were doing, there was no place to do that in the early and mid-70s. When we came back from America, we'd just been through 2 or 3 years of rapid acceleration. We had gone from support spots to being the biggest band in the country, where every month you could see it getting bigger, wider, the band getting bigger, the audience getting bigger, everything just steamrolling into areas that no band had got to culturally in this country before. You know, we were kind of more than a band by that stage. And going to America was the first time when there was kind of a speed bump. Why did we split?
Yeah, why did you split the first time?
Oh, I think I couldn't stand the sight of each other. We got such a charge out of the way we played together. Let's do some writing, you know. Let's have some fun.
And was the magic there again?
Whenever the playing happens, the magic seems to just start up again.
This was the band back then, and here's Cold Chisel today. An empty chair was left for Steve.
Really good guys. Perfect.
We've all sort of, you know, done major things and had major sort of, you know, upheavals and great things happen in our lives, you know, since.
We didn't kids then.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you didn't.
Now, let me assure you that Don did not write Bob Dylan's Knocking on Heaven's Door, but that aside, would you please welcome this year's inductee into the Australian Songwriters Hall of Fame, one of our famous, the great Don Walker. I see him but approach.
Thanks, Glenn. I didn't write Knocking on Heaven's Door, and I didn't really sing it either. Where are you taking that? That's thank you very much for all that, Glenn. And I have to have a discussion with you later, because where I come from was always Ray Manzarek. Not Ray how did you say? Manzarek. He calls himself we'll talk about that later. Thank you very much for from me to ASA and everybody here tonight. I'm not used to getting awards. It's not something that has really happened much, and generally I try and be in another city when that happens. But it's a huge honour to get an award like this from an association that is set up for the celebration of songs. And thank you very much.
The secret behind at least one song.
I came under, a couple of people suggested to me quite late in the piece over the last 24 hours that I maybe should do a Cold Chisel song, and because we're going to do a couple of songs with the band that I have been playing with for the last 10 years, and I had to point out to Claire and Glenn that we don't do Cold Chisel songs because they don't know any Cold Chisel songs, and for the clear reason that I can't sing them. Those songs were written for Ian and Jim to sing. If I could sing Cold Chisel songs, I wouldn't have bothered writing new ones the last 30 years. I've just gone around singing those and I would have made a lot more money. So I think that's about it. Thank you, everybody, and we'll play a couple of tunes for you now. like a shark at a funeral. Harry always moved in small town circles, and no one ever knew until later who'd been taken, who'd been left alive undamaged, until the next time he came through. Now he was rumored to be the one with the franchise for running heroin up the north and northwest as far as Burke. They said he ran an immigration ring, bringing Thai girls in to stock the western suburbs brothels, all sanctioned by the coppers. Now we all know how that works. There ain't much more I need to say. Harry was a bad bugger, a bad bugger all the way. Now I used to have this friend at school, and like so many country girls, she was way ahead of all the boys her age. But she married one of us anyway, and she loved her kids until the day she met Harry at a barbecue. What went wrong, I never knew, but they were gone up to the Gold Coast for a while. And then he set her up in the next town down the highway in a hair and beauty shop. A couple of teenage girls to help her out, to work back late, help her entertain Harry and his business associates. I don't need to paint the picture. There's not much more I need to say. Harry was a bad bugger, a bad bugger always. Now, for 10 or 15 years, we'd see Harry come and go, like an ugly piece of weather. These days, no one seems to know why, half a lifetime later, he hasn't been seen round town for quite a while. And of course the rumors, they come and go around, that he was dumped out off Coffs Harbour, shackled to a fridge, that he might be buried in a pylon of the New Glebe Island Bridge. All kinds of speculation. Some say he's been seen looking after business interests up in the southern Philippines. Now, the last time I saw Harry, just before he disappeared, he was filling out a little bit. He'd even grown himself a beard. I found him in a bottle shop not too far from Warwick Farm. He looked at me, and I could see no sign of alarm. Now there's a saying up round our way, I remember being told, that revenge is a meal most delicious, eaten cold. You can hang around here till you lay down and die. I got no more to say. Harry was a bad bugger, a bad bugger all the way. Yeah, Harry was a bad bugger, a bad bugger all the way. Long ago and far away, I was hitchhiking on a clear blue day. Cat's eyes broke in my feet, my tongue was dry as the hills where Jesus hung, and I lay and wondered if he died for me. On a highway straighter than the barrel of eternity, my focus panned on the shattered stones, shifting sand in the lizard bones. The withered skin on my hand was lined like a map of the land I'd left behind alone. A drifter and a Pharisee on a highway straight in the barrel of eternity. Now I've long lost count to name the days when a long black car came out of the haze. The door swung open and the driver called my name in a voice like a mama doll, and I knew no matter what the game may be, this man stared down the barrel of eternity. Yeah, this man stared down the barrel of eternity. He said, I'm so tired, brother, and I've traveled such a long way, and I'm running shy of water. Won't you ride with me the highway on this day? I said, I know you will. People talk, and I heard them tell how you ate up the seed corn on this side of the San Mateo River, how the cattle died, how the pain of your fever spread out across the moon like a thunderhead, like a lost wind, a hole alone, split the stone cathedral floor. I know the danger, but cannot close my heart as a man on the book on those who've lost the battle. And I'm hooking my thumb round a well-sucked bottle of inner circle rum, and I'm handing it over. He's whacking it down. His old man's Adam's apple jumping around, kicking at a rope under his chin, and I'm looking at the sky like a sheet of hot tin, and I'm feeling so sick in the head, and I fall to one knee, then another. All that I can see is a highway straighter than the barrel of eternity. Yeah, a highway straighter than the barrel of eternity. And in a dream I saw a woman. She was burying something in the sand. There are tales among these hills, she whispered, far beyond Jerusalem's coast. Long ago, far away, I opened my eyes and attempted to pray. I opened my eyes on a land as frozen cold as the hole where Jesus rose, and I left and on a highway straighter than the barrel of eternity. On a highway straighter than the barrel of eternity. On a highway straighter than the barrel of eternity. Yeah, on a highway straighter than the barrel of eternity. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you again, and good night, and thank you very much for the award and the great night of music that we've had. Good night. I don't know if there's more. I think there might be more, but from Glenn.
Another of the great moments in the history of the Australian Songwriters Association, with our new Hall of Fame inductee, and of course the words leading into it by Glenn A. Baker. Thank you, Glenn, and congratulations to our new inductee. We would like now to, in fact, call back to the stage Danny Burgess, the chairman of the Australian Songwriters Association, because finally tonight we've reached the moment where, of course, we announce the 2012, or 2012 if you like, APRA ASA Songwriter of the Year. And to get that underway, here he is again, the chairman of the Australian Songwriters Association, Mr. Danny Burgess.
Okay. All right, the time has come, and I know it's getting late. We've got to go. I used to say that the Master's Apprentices, we used to start playing at 12 o'clock. Playing at 12 o'clock. We wouldn't play then. We'd play till 2, and then we'd party till about 6. So if you want to stay around and party, West is open, that's cool. All right. All right, now look, we owe a lot to APRA, and APRA supports the ASA all the time. There's nothing I can say about it. They just, everything we go to APRA and talk about, they always support the ASA, and we love them for that. And it is the APRA ASA Songwriter of the Year Award, and I'd like to get to the stage now Lucia Doll from APRA. Would you please give her a round of applause to come on up, Lucia, please.
Thank you everyone for coming along and having a great night. It's been quite the journey, and it's a great night to be here. Thanks to Glenn. What a guy. Great speech. Yeah. So let's get this award
all right. There we go.
Way.
So.
tricky one. And the winner of the APRA ASA Songwriter of the Year 2012 is Andrew Winton.
Well, as I said, behind every average man is a wonderful woman, as these guys at Denny has demonstrated. But thank you very much to ASA and to everyone else for organising tonight, and especially for WA people who are still on 3 hours behind because we don't want daylight saving. But thank you very much and for having us here, and for all the work you guys have put in, and for all the other winners and people involved. And one more thing, for ASA, every time we win something, something happens, so it does matter. So keep going and keep writing songs and keep going. And don't get a real job, it's not worth it. So thank you.
Past 11, she knew that